So I decided that from now on, I'm going to start every one of my videos off highlighting one of my photographs at my photography page on my website, because I haven't really done that ever, and I'm not sure how to promote my photography at all, and it's something that I do want to share. So I'm going to show you a photograph at the beginning of each video. I'm going to explain why I took it and what I was thinking, why I hit the shutter button. Because for me, that's really important. Like, I'm never shooting anything just randomly. I always have a reason for it. And, sometimes it might be just because the lighting looks cool and maybe I think that's going to be a great image, but not really have any kind of deep meaning. But in this case, it's kind of the opposite, because it's not the greatest technical photograph that I can take, but this is a picture of a place called Madiba. That was literally the only South African restaurant in all of New York City for many years. And it was in the Fort Greene section, like just a block from Fort Greene Park. And anybody who knows that neighborhood and who knows that restaurant knows that that was a very, very special place. Like, the energy in there was incredible. It was kind of an artist's meeting place, a haven, a place to exchange ideas and talk about meaningful things, and also just a place to have fun and party. And it was incredible. And the reason I took this shot is because obviously you could see Madiba closed. This was years ago. And when it closed, I know I was heartbroken, and I'm quite sure many people in the neighborhood felt the same way. And so I wanted to, take a picture just so that I have something that showed that it actually existed for a period of time. And I just never wanted to forget it. And I found it interesting that there are people walking in front of it, kind of showing the passage of time or movement, or, people just going about their business. And, these people probably had no idea what the restaurant was, or maybe they did. I don't know. But I'll tell you, the first time I ever walked into Madiba, I'll tell you two stories about Madiba. First time I ever walked in there, I'd never been there before, obviously, because it was the first time I ever walked in there. And the owner of the restaurant was greeting everybody and seated us at a table. And I was married at the time, so my wife and I sat down. And the guy, hits a glass like the way people do at a wedding when they want the groom and the bride to kiss. And he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, a friend of mine brought in an independent film that he just shot, and we would like to debut it here at Madiba. Is that okay with you?" And like the whole restaurant just screamed, yeah, like this was some kind of regular thing. And they showed a movie, like right there on the spot. I'm talking about it was almost 2 hours, full-length feature film. And it was incredible. And then they did a Q&A afterwards, and they talked about it. And it was about, it was basically about apartheid in South Africa. And it was just an unbelievable experience. And I remember thinking, man, I live in an incredible neighborhood. Like, I couldn't believe how special that was and how it felt. And I actually met a lot of people that night. And it was just, something I wanted to make sure that I had documented in a photograph. And that could last forever. So, check it out. Go to my website. So, of course, like a knucklehead, I was editing the video, and I realized I forgot to tell you the second Madiba story. I just told the first story, then I went on to the rest of the video. And so let me tell you the second story too. And I also just wanted to mention real quick, Canon, the new C50, and Nikon has this camera where they're partnering with Red, and apparently it has a red image, and it's supposed to be incredible. And, all this incredible technology sounds great, but I'm still just so grateful to have the Panasonic S5. Honestly, I get exactly the image quality that I want out of it, and whatever. So anyway, the second Madiba story. So Madiba was named after Nelson Mandela. And if you don't know who he is, I'm not going to explain it to you here, just Google him, but one of the most important figures in human history from South Africa. And so the day Mandela died, I said to myself, I have to go to Madiba, because I knew, being the only South African restaurant in all of New York City, and such a culturally rich place and a meeting place for artists and activists and, for all kinds of different people, I just wanted to get out there. And I had moved out to the Bronx at this point, so I just wanted to get back to Brooklyn to go to this restaurant to see what was happening there, because I knew something special was going to be going on. And, you know, I've been looking for pictures of this. I've taken some I took some pictures that day, but I can't find them. So if you see them here in the video, I found them. If not, you're just going to have to use your imagination. But anyway, got out to Fort Greene, went to Madiba, and of course, there were what seemed to be, I would say, at least hundreds of people, if not thousands of people there. Outside of the restaurant, on the street, right across the street from Madiba, there are these basketball courts with these chain link fences, you know, like a New York City kind of basketball court, you know, and on those fences were just like cards, pictures, you know, people who had written things, graffiti, like all kinds of stuff, poetry. There was music, cassettes were hanging from there, CDs. It was unbelievable, you know, all in tribute to Nelson Mandela. And just all of these people hanging out in the street, talking about Mandela, talking about the issues that Mandela stood for, talking about racism and apartheid and equality and human rights. And it was just such an incredible day. And to me, so representative of what Madiba was like, that restaurant. Like, going there was not just about eating good South African food. It was about being around these people, being around the owners who were so welcoming of everybody, and being around the community and all the people that would come and flock to this place and be together and share their art and share their ideas and just bond, you know, and just kind of love on each other and support one another and encourage one another. And it was an amazing place. So I wanted to share that story as well. So let's get back to the rest of the video right now. My video for today is about how, you know, I've been thinking a lot about what's going on in the world right now and what's going on in this country. And I'm not going to get deeply into it. I'm not going to start talking politics. You don't have to roll your eyes. You don't have to leave. You know, if you would prefer me talking about cameras, I could do that. You know, I could talk about how, you know, I find the Canon C70 interesting, the S1H. I do think this new C50 is interesting, the new Canon camera, but I'm not going to buy it, and I'm not spending $4,000. And I think it is probably an FX3 killer because it's the same size, same kind of type of body. It's close to a cinema camera, but it's still small and light. It does amazing things. It's got much more kind of filmmaker stuff in it than the Sony camera has, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about, more and more lately, I've been feeling like, you know, life is so fleeting, you know? And a good example of that is a camera. Like, you could buy a camera, right? And you're really excited about it. It's the only thing you've ever wanted, and you finally get it. And, you know, within a couple of weeks, you're using it, hopefully. I mean, in some cases, people don't even use them. But in a few weeks, you're using it, and you get used to it, and it's not so special anymore. It's like, I think a lot of people don't really appreciate it after a while, because once you have it, it's just a tool. And you realize it's not about the camera, it's about the story. And it's about the project, and it's about the characters, and it's about, you know, what you're trying to evoke in people, what you're trying to say, what you're trying to communicate. And so that fleeting moment of lusting after a piece of equipment, a piece of gear, goes away really fast once you have it. And then, you know, if you watch YouTube all the time, you probably move on to wanting another camera. You know, like, you buy something, you're like, oh, I don't have gas anymore, I'm fine, I'm good forever. And then all of a sudden, you want something else, and eventually you buy something else. And so anyway, that's like a metaphor for life. Like, life is just flying by, you know? Years go by. Like, that picture of Madiba is from probably around 2007, I think it closed, 2008 maybe, something like that. I don't know. Somewhere around that time. My allergies are bugging me, so excuse me if I sound a little stuffed. But anyway, today I went and I visited two friends who I hadn't seen in a very long time. Dear friends, you know, friends who were like family to me for a time in my life, for, I would say, probably for 15 or 20 years of my life, like family. And 18, 20, yeah. And I hadn't seen them in years, and they've been through a lot. We've all been through a lot since the last time we saw each other. And I don't know, recently I saw some stuff on social media about their daughter. And she was working for USAID, so she lost her job. She left Washington, D.C., she moved to Seattle. And it just made me think about them and their family and how we've kind of, we all moved, we lived in different places, and suddenly we just kind of lost touch. So I reconnected with them and I emailed them, and it just turned out, or I texted, and it just turned out that it was a married couple. The woman had just gone through something where she almost died. Just as I called her, she was going through it. She had just gotten out of the hospital. She actually got a form of Lyme disease where it eats away at the red blood cells in your body. And so her red blood count went so low that she was like right next to death. So she had to spend some time in the hospital, a lot of transfusions and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, she's fine now. She's recovering. It's probably going to take her a few months to get her strength back, but she was very lucky. And, her husband's been through a lot of stuff over the years, but, basically they're pretty healthy people. They have a beautiful family. I'm not even going to say where they're from, but they have a very complicated existence, to say the least. And they're brilliant, empathetic, activist kind of minded people, artists, scientists, like a scientist and an artist married together in a family. Their kids, same thing. One's a scientist, one's an artist. They're just, amazing people. And today I'm sitting there and I'm eating with them. They have this dream house that they bought the land like 20 years ago or something like that, maybe 30 years ago. And they wound up building two structures on it for nothing, comparable to what you would buy a house for today. They spent less money on these two places than most people spend on one house. But they did it many, many years ago in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods. I think the land cost them like $4,000 or $5,000, so they were in good shape. And so everything that we ate today at their table was from their garden, which was incredible. And it was a great conversation. It was a great coming together. It was so nice reconnecting, and it just reminded me that during this time especially, we should always feel like this, but during this time especially, if you have people in your life who are special to you, who mean something to you, who you feel add value to your life, who inspire you, who love you and who you love, you got to hold on to these relationships for dear life. You can't just let things like that disconnect or go away, in my opinion. It's just like, this is what life is about. The people in your life, your relationships. And, we hardly talked about what I was doing all day. And, we just reconnected. We were talking about the world, but we talked a lot about art, in general. They showed me, what they've built there. And I'll see them again very soon, I'm sure, because we live pretty close to each other now. And, I think since I wound up somehow in the camera space on YouTube, I think it's kind of a good metaphor for, I'm shooting with the Panasonic S5. And I know this sounds like this is some contrived thing where I'm trying to talk about cameras and life and all, but it really is, for me, a metaphor. Like, I'm shooting with the Panasonic S5. I love this camera. Of course, I'm curious about other cameras. I've always wanted the S1H, because, I've had Moiré a few times, and I don't want to deal with that because you can't fix it. And it's a pain in the ass. So if I had an S1H, I would have so much of a less chance of that happening because of the optical low-pass filter. And, I've been interested in like the Canon R5C, and now this new, C50 is interesting to me. And, I was lusting after the FX3 for a long time, but I used the A6400. But the bottom line is, the S5 for me is everything. I love it so much. I don't really use autofocus. Like, I had a Sony A6400 and I never used the autofocus on that camera. Because if it moves at all, I guess with my workflow, my style of shooting, no autofocus is going to make me feel comfortable. None. For what I do. It might work for you. It might work in other situations. But for me, I don't need it. I don't care. So the S5 is perfect. I have these anamorphic lenses. They look so beautiful. I'm shooting with the Series 35mm f1.8 right now. It's a beautiful lens. I love it so much. You really can't tell in here. You know what I mean? But when I take it outside, go look at my other videos with the Series 35mm anamorphic APS-C lens. It looks gorgeous, beautiful. And so, this camera is like a beast. I've dropped it. I've had it in really difficult circumstances, and it runs and runs. It's never overheated on me. 4K to me is fine. 4K 60 with a crop doesn't bother me, but again, it's for my workflow. Like, I don't mind backing up. I hardly use slow motion anyway, so 4K 24, and the fact that I can de-squeeze in camera for my anamorphic shooting, and the fact that I can adapt all my vintage lenses to this camera easily, I mean, I have everything that I need. I use the sound, like I'm using a Zoom H1N audio device right now to my Purple Panda lavalier mic. My audio is pro audio. I have a Hollyland Lark Max that I use sometimes, and I'll plug a lavalier into it and I'll hide the Lark Max, and like my sound thing is good. My visual part of it is good. I love the way this looks. It's a low light beast to me. It's full frame, which everybody wants. I learned that full frame doesn't mean anything to me. Like, okay, maybe it's better in low light, but I find I have a GH5. It works great in low light. My A6400 was great in low light. I mean, the ISO capabilities of these cameras are incredible. Like, if you're just testing it all the time, if you're just going by the numbers, then of course, if you know in your head the statistics of the ISO settings and how many stops of light you get, and then you test it and you see a little bit of noise and it drives you crazy, then okay. But if you're just doing a project and you're telling a story, I mean, as long as you're getting a good image, as long as you're looking for light, you're either adding light or you're looking for light, and you know what you're doing, you're going to get a great image. And so it's like relationships, you know what I mean? Because the most important thing is that you have a camera that you know it inside out. You know how it works. You know how it responds in low light. You know how it is in high contrast situations where you need dynamic range, and you've learned how to do that. You know how it looks, with regards to your focal length, because, all lenses are a little bit different, It's not an exact science. So you know how everything looks. You're used to the monitor, you're used to the EVF, you're used to it. You know how the preamps are in it. I mean, it's so worthwhile to keep what you have and to really master it and learn it, so that if the story doesn't look good or whatever, it's because of the story. It's because your script is no good. It's because you didn't get into sharing this, these characters or the arc of the story or the exposition or whatever. Like, it's not the camera. And so you're lusting after all this shit, but you don't need it. You know what I mean? And so why is it a metaphor? It's like, you shouldn't take your friends for granted. You shouldn't take your relationships for granted. You shouldn't take the people in your life for granted. You shouldn't think that there's something better for you out there. There's more. There's somebody who understands you better. You want to meet more interesting people. Like, if there are people who you love, keep them. It doesn't stop you from meeting more people, from going out there and having new experiences, from traveling, from whatever. It's okay. But there's something about time. There's something about commitment. There's something about loyalty, of real love, of friendship. There's something about, days, months, years. And you turn around and you're like, wow, we've had so many experiences together. We've had so many conversations. We've been there for one another silently during the difficult times sometimes. We've gotten through difficult moments between us sometimes. Like, there's just something of such great value. It's the same thing with your equipment. Sometimes you got to solve problems. Sometimes there are limitations on the gear that you have. And so if you're just like, oh, this is garbage now, it doesn't have good enough dynamic range, instead of trying to figure it out for yourself, which makes you a better filmmaker. Like, oh, 4K 60 crop, I need a new camera. Why don't you just move back, or try to figure out, maybe you're going to find a better composition. And look, I know that that's a pain, and sometimes that is a disadvantage, but I'm just saying, nothing is perfect. No body is going to be perfect for your life. Nothing is going to be perfect for your life. So I'm not saying I don't like new things. Change is not good. It's all good. Change is good. New things are good. Learning new stuff, evolving, growing, being in new situations, having new things. It's all good. But to keep the other stuff too, your foundation, where you came from, there's something to be said when somebody goes, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget the people who were there before you got all this other stuff going on. The people who were there for you. The people who were there when you were growing, who knew you before. there's just something so great about that, so meaningful, you know, so just like, it's just, that's the soul of life. That's the soul of a camera, of a guitar, of whatever your lens is. Like, you know, like have experiences with your gear, make movies, you know, shoot weddings or whatever you do. Have experiences with what you have and do a great job. You know, learn it so well that you just kill it. You know, you do an incredible job, and people recognize you for that, or you recognize the growth as you look at your work from now to next month to next year to a decade from now to 15 years. Like, you know, use it until it's used up. And, you know, maybe it'll never be used up. Maybe you will use that camera until you are done using cameras. Why do you always have to have something new? And again, there's nothing wrong with something new. But it's just like people. Do you really need to let go of things? Like, are you not fixing something inside of yourself and instead trying to fix everything around you that you can't control, that you think is hindering your life, is stopping you, is getting in your way, but you're not going within? You're not getting inside of yourself. You're not being quiet. You're not being silent. You're not stepping away from social media and actually using your brain with some space instead of filling it up all the time like scrolling. There's something really valuable about staying right there and just being still for a minute. And then mastering that moment, mastering who you are. Get to know who you are. Do you even know who you are as just you? Are you looking for somebody else to make you better? Are you looking for a camera because you think it's going to make you a better filmmaker, better photographer? It's not. And I know that's a cliche, and I know people talk about that all the time, but it's true. So that's what I was thinking about today when I saw my friends, and I was so grateful, and I was like, Jesus, like, we should never let that many years go by again. I haven't seen them in so long. And it's just made me a little sad, but it also made me so grateful. So incredibly grateful. And, you know, just a reminder, do not take anything in your life for granted. Nothing. And don't ever sleep on experience and time. Don't ever sleep on that, because that's everything. Foundation. Build. You know, don't just keep jumping around, whether it be people or things, gear, whatever. Build. Master. You know, be your best self at every level that you're at. And keep reaching for the stars, yes, you know, and that's a cliche too, but yes, reach for new things, reach for new people, reach for all of that. It's good growth, but don't throw anything away. Unless you're a hoarder. In that case, throw things away. But keep the valuable things in your life. You know, be discerning with that. Be smart. Don't be afraid of that. You know, be your best self. And that doesn't mean throwing things away around you. Take responsibility for fixing you before you look outward for things that you think are going to fix you, because they're not. So anyway, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please consider joining my Patreon. And I'm not going to say another word in this video. I'm just going to end it right here.